Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and today I'm here to talk about the 2019 film Parallel World Love Story. What's interesting about this is this film wasn't really on my radar until a couple of weeks ago when I saw that it was going to be aired in HBO Red. But I saw the trailer, the concept, given the title, it's flat out there, Parallel World Love Story. And it seems like a good drama, thriller, suspense kind of narrative, and that really drew me to wanting to see it. Then after seeing it, so here are my thoughts. Now, the thing is, I might be able to spill a couple of spoilers here and there, but I'll try as much as possible not to pinpoint a lot of very specific plot details, just so, I think just to be able to discuss what I like and not like about this film. But still, if you happen to see it before wanting to watch it, then at least you'll be able to enjoy the experience yourself without any major spoilers here and there. But with that said, so let's just get to it. Story starts off with Tamamori Yuta's character Takashi, who takes the same train line every single day during his postgraduate days. He takes the Yamanote line, and he says that given the same view over and over, he keeps seeing the same view from the same point in the train every single day, so he doesn't really care much about it, or doesn't really care enough to take notice of whatever it is that's changing out there. To him, it's just all monotony. If there's one thing that piqued his interest throughout his years riding the train, it's that he always keeps on seeing a girl from the adjacent tracks, or the other side of the tracks, where whenever the two trains pass by each other, he keeps on seeing the same girl, and that eventually led to him falling in love with her, even if she's a complete stranger. Now, during his last day taking that route, because his routine is about to change, he's about to graduate and everything like that, he ended up taking the other train just so he can catch the girl. Now, while riding the other train, he sees that she was on the other side where he was supposed his usual route. So they really didn't cross paths again, even in that particular moment. So in his head, he was thinking that maybe they're not really meant to meet each other. Maybe they're living in parallel worlds. That's that. Now, but that doesn't really play off much into the grand scheme of things when it comes to narrative. We learn later on that Takashi, along with his childhood friend Tomohiko, they're both sort of scientists who work in projects that has something to do with neurological research. And right off the bat, I mean, as someone who's really into sci-fi films that aren't really space travel related or anything like that. One of my favorite films of all time is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And this initial concept of the film, as soon as they introduced, the whole rewriting memories thing at the beginning of the plot, it immediately gave me that impression and wanted me to keep on watching this film. But even so, we sort of discover in the first 20-30 minutes of the film that Takashi's character is sort of going back and forth into two different realities, and we're not quite sure which one is real, because in his dreams he remembers that Tomohiko has a girlfriend, Mayuko, and Mayuko is that same girl that he fell in love with. But in his reality, when he wakes up, Mayuko is his girlfriend and Tomohiko is nowhere to be found. So it's more of this mesh of memories that he keeps going back and forth from, because there's some sort of mismatch in his reality versus what he recalls, or there's some certain patterns whenever he's sleeping or whenever he's lost in thought that sort of reminds him that things aren't as they seem, to him trying to reconcile all these different information that he's getting. Now, there are bits and pieces here that are around the 45-minute mark of the film. You sort of already know what's happening. It's just that they don't want to let you know yet. And I think that's when the plot sort of loses its momentum because you already know, like, given all the clues that they've been talking about this research and about, you know, the memories that keeps on being mismatched and anything like that, and the actions of the people around him, all these things. So there's already something fishy happening. It's just that it took them so long to explain what actually happened that by the time they explain it in around the 1 hour mark of the film, the viewer already has an idea as to what it's about, or whether or not they're going to be corrected. It's not going to be that big of a deal anymore. Now, by the end of the film, or not really, like, both we discover the truth about these characters and what led them to, you know, what happened. Now, given the plot and given, you know, the whole research thing, so obviously it has something to do with that certain experiment that alters memories. Around like last 20 to 30 minutes of the film, that's when it's sort of like felt a lot more real, or I don't know, like it felt a lot more interesting. Like that's when it only felt like the story was getting somewhere. It's just a shame because that was already at the end of the story. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite films of all time is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It has that same dynamic with the whole, you know, alternating memories kind of thing, sort of like trying to reconcile the fact that even if you try to manipulate your brain, something would still trigger certain thoughts that would lead you to make the same decisions all over again, or trigger certain emotions or sensations within yourself that is relative to your old memories, something like that. It's that whole like geeky brain thing that absolutely I personally love, that, you know, I also like about this film. It's just that in this film, it took a lot of like explanation in a more like jargony type of way. Like they tried to make it seem like it's a very, very like smart concept, which I get. It's just that there are ways to make that into the narrative without it sounding too nerdy. Because I feel like if you're like me, you would probably enjoy that in your film. But if you're just here to sort of like be fascinated with this whole idea, I felt like they used a lot of like jargons and stuff like that may or may not be necessarily true, that kind of fell flat in terms of the grander scale of the narrative. Another thing is I felt like there are certain subplots that were unnecessary in the film that was included. And it would have been a lot more effective if the film was sort of like just around 1 hour and 20 minutes or so. And it could have made done with some of the other subplots that doesn't really matter as much. I felt like they could have been just on the nose with the story or the intentions of the characters as to why they did what they did. As compared to the roller coaster that happened when they were trying to explain, you know, how it ended up with the situation that they're in. Even so, I feel like the performances of the characters, specifically for Tamamori Yuta, I feel like he did a really good job in this film. For the others, like for Shometani Shota, I've seen him in other works, and I felt like there are other layers to his character that would have been fleshed out better for us to feel like we care about him as much. Because in the end, it's like the only character worthy to care about in this film is Takashi, or Tamamori Yuta's character. And like even for Mayoko, she seemed like just a massive plot device in this entire thing. I like the poignancy at the end of the film, or you know, how they concluded it, because it just made sense. It definitely reminded me of, again, very similar to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind meets Kimi no Na wa for some reason. Like that's how the entire thing wrapped up. But other than that, like, you don't really care much for these characters because they seem too distant, or there's nothing really to like gather from any of their relationships other than what they were saying on screen. And it felt like the film was so busy trying to explain the whole science thing that it forgot to make us care for these characters emotionally, besides the main character, which is Takashi. And even Takashi's character, like, we seemed a little bit one-dimensional in some parts of the film. So yeah, now with that said, so overall, I think the concept is really good. I absolutely love these types of concepts. I love, there are highs and lows in the film, and whenever there are certain highs, like I personally feel like it's interesting. It's just that there were more lows in this film that were very glaring, and it's definitely one of those films that you watch it one time and then you sort of like don't get compelled to rewatch it again. I don't know, it's just me, but if you like these types of concepts, I say give it a shot. But yeah, but if it fascinated you, and this is very rare for me to suggest a Western film in contrast to like an Asian film, but I suggest that Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is a better executed way of how this whole like neurological thing, memory altering thing, plot or concept is delivered. I think that's still the best example, even if that film was, I don't know, early 2000s or something like that. But yeah, but this was a good attempt. It's just that it feels like there can be more that could have been done given the runtime that it had. So yeah. Now, tell me down in the comments below, have you seen this film or planning to see this film? Tell me your thoughts. Let's talk it out down there. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon in a new one. Bye!